Come, light of the world, guide us today, and may we walk more like you. I'm continuing my reflection in The Return of the Prodigal Son, written by Henry Nouwen, as we look at the painting of Rembrandt, as Nouwen reflected upon it, and the parable found in Luke chapter 15. Today we're going to look at the older brother and some of Nouwen's reflections. Now the elder son was out in the fields, and on his way back, as he drew near the house, he could hear music and dancing. Calling one of the servants, he asked what it was all about. The servant told him, "Your brother has come, and your father has killed the calf we have been fattening because he has got him back safe and sound." He was angry then and refused to go in, and his father came out and began to urge him to come in. But he retorted to his father, "All these years I've slaved for you and never once disobeyed any orders of yours. Yet you never offered me so much as a kid for me to celebrate with my friends. But for this son of yours, when he comes back after swallowing up your property, he and his loose women, you kill the calf we had been fattening." The father said, "My son, you are with me always, and all I have is yours. But it was only right we should celebrate and rejoice because your brother here was dead, and he has come to life. He was lost and is found." In the painting that Rembrandt painted, the older brother is pictured in the scene with the father embracing him. So, not exactly biblically accurate, but spiritually accurate, as Nouwen points out. The parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector and the parable of the prodigal son were closely linked. Rembrandt follows that tradition. The seated man beating his breast and looking at the returning son is a steward representing the sinners and the tax collectors. Now, if you remember last week, we pointed out that Jesus tells this parable as Pharisees are criticizing him for allowing tax collectors and sinners to draw near to him. And so Rembrandt has taken that moment in history where Jesus is speaking the parable and somewhat combined them. We can see the older brother as the Pharisees criticizing and the man repenting as those sinners and tax collectors. While the standing man looking at the father in a somewhat enigmatic way is the older brother representing the Pharisees and scribes. By putting the elder son in the painting as the most prominent witness, however, Rembrandt goes not only beyond the literal text of the parable, but also beyond the painting tradition of his time. Thus, Rembrandt holds on not to the letter, but to the spirit of the biblical text. And when you see the son, he is distant. This is the father's son, not his brother. His hands are in a somewhat worried position. You can tell he's biting his tongue, and he's watching unhappily. One of the points that is revealed in the older son's speech is this: an assumption. He hasn't talked to his brother. He doesn't know his brother's business and where he has been. But he says this of him: "When he comes back after swallowing up your property, he and his loose women, you kill the calf we had been fattening." There's an assumption in the older brother's heart that reveals a desire not unlike the younger son. A desire to throw off the shackles of his father, to indulge as the brother has. He has projected upon his brother what he spent his money on: loose women and partying. He desires to have that experience himself and even complains to his father, "There's no party for me." The son had focused on the restraints of being a son, not the blessings. He'd missed them entirely. The prodigal son, by sinning in a way, discovers the rich blessings of his father that are so rich, even the servants have it better than he does in his life of living how he wants to, and the end it brings him to until he returns to the Father. But the older son has not learned this lesson, and he's not discovered the compassion of the Father. It's not an encouragement for us to go and to sin, but it is an encouragement to us, either as sinner or as the obedient son, to open our eyes to the many blessings that the Father has. He is no less likely to embrace the behaving child than the misbehaving child. Both he embraces lovingly. Both he colors with his beautiful blessings. When you reflect upon the painting, you will see that while the Father's garments accent and bring out the beauty even in the rags of the prodigal son, you will see a very similar garment upon the older son. He is part of the kingdom. He reflects the Father, but he's missed the blessing. Don't miss the blessing today. Yes, God calls us to live a righteous life, but in that there are blessings. Yes, God has called us to turn our back on the sins and temptations we face because it leads to a terrible end. But that does not mean that he is not ready and willing to provide for you now. Go in peace, be blessed, and be a blessing. Amen.